Every large system produces warnings. They are embedded into the structure. Audits, reviews, risk registers, incident reports, forecasts, performance indicators. Some are automated, others are written by specialists. Many come from frontline staff who notice problems forming long before leadership does. The presence of warnings is not unusual. What matters is how the system responds to them. In theory, warnings exist to interrupt normal operations. They are supposed to slow decisions, force attention, and introduce friction. A warning challenges the assumption that everything is under control. It is meant to be disruptive. In systems that are functioning properly, that disruption is tolerated. A warning triggers meetings. Priorities shift. Resources are reallocated. Decisions are delayed until the risk is addressed. The warning has authority because it changes behavior. But in systems already under strain, warnings arrive into a different environment entirely. They enter organizations where deviation is familiar, where missed targets are routine, where shortfalls have already been absorbed and explained. In that context, a warning does not stand out. It blends in. It becomes one more signal among many competing for attention in an overloaded system. At first, the warning is still acknowledged. It is logged, escalated, added to a register. The language is serious. The tone is cautious. There is often agreement that the issue matters. Then nothing happens. No priorities change. No resources move. The system continues operating exactly as before. The warning has been processed, but not acted upon. That moment matters more than it appears, because the system has just learned something about itself. It has learned that warnings can be absorbed without consequence. No one intended to teach that lesson. But the lesson is structural. The absence of response communicates more clearly than any policy ever could. It tells the organization that warnings do not override constraints. They do not compel action. They do not change incentives. The next warning arrives into a system that already knows this, and it carries less weight. Warning fatigue does not appear suddenly. It accumulates through repetition. In declining systems, the same risks appear again and again under different labels: capacity limits, staffing shortages, maintenance backlogs, compliance gaps, budget pressure. Each review cycle produces new documents describing old problems with slightly adjusted language. People notice the pattern. They see that last year's warning did not lead to change, nor the year before that, nor the one before that. Over time, it becomes obvious that warnings are issued, acknowledged, discussed, and then archived. Nothing fundamental shifts. This repetition alters behavior, even when no one acknowledges it openly. Those closest to the problem stop escalating early. They wait longer. They revise wording. They soften conclusions. They add caveats. They learn how to shape warnings so they pass review without provoking disruption. This is not apathy. It is self-preservation. Escalating a serious warning attracts attention. It creates expectations. It attaches responsibility. In systems where leadership lacks the capacity to act, raising alarms can be professionally dangerous. So people adapt. Urgency is diluted. Probabilities are blurred. Risks are downgraded into concerns. The goal quietly shifts from forcing action to avoiding backlash. The warning still exists, but it is carefully shaped to survive the process. Leadership adapts as well. Faced with a constant stream of warnings, decision-makers begin to triage psychologically. Some warnings are treated as routine, others are deferred. Many are acknowledged without urgency. Everything cannot be addressed, so nothing truly is. This creates a feedback loop. Each warning that produces no action weakens the next. Not because the warning is wrong, but because the system has learned that warnings do not predict immediate consequences. Near misses accelerate this process. When a warned about failure does not occur immediately, the warning is reinterpreted as overly cautious. The absence of disaster becomes evidence that the risk was exaggerated. Each avoided outcome reinforces the belief that warnings can be safely ignored. Eventually, the system becomes numb. Warnings still arrive. They simply stop feeling urgent. As warning fatigue deepens, the purpose of escalation changes. Escalation is no longer primarily about preventing failure. It becomes about documenting awareness. Reports are written to demonstrate that someone noticed the risk, not to ensure that the risk is addressed. The warning still exists, but its function shifts quietly from correction to protection. This transition is subtle, but decisive. At first, the warning is still framed as actionable. Language suggests urgency. Recommendations are included, timelines are proposed. But as similar warnings accumulate without effect, the system adapts. The emphasis moves away from outcomes and toward process. The question is no longer whether the risk will be reduced. The question becomes whether the warning was issued correctly. Warnings turn into bureaucratic artifacts. They satisfy governance requirements. They create paper trails. They demonstrate diligence. The act of issuing the warning becomes more important than what happens afterward. Once this shift occurs, urgency drains away. Risks are categorized, ranked, color-coded, logged into registers, reviewed periodically, and then left unresolved. Everything is tracked, but little is changed. The system becomes highly skilled at describing its vulnerabilities while remaining incapable of reducing them. This state is often mistaken for transparency. After all, the risks are visible. They appear in reports, dashboards, and presentations. They are acknowledged in meetings. They are referenced in strategy documents. But visibility without consequence is not accountability. It is normalization. Over time, the system begins to rely on the existence of warnings as evidence of responsibility. The fact that a risk was identified becomes proof that due care was exercised. Whether the risk was mitigated becomes secondary. This creates a perverse inversion. The warning no longer represents a failure to act. It represents compliance. "We knew about this" becomes a defense rather than an indictment. The warning provides insulation. It proves that the system was not ignorant, even if it was ineffective. Leadership becomes increasingly shielded by documentation. If failure eventually occurs, it can be framed as unavoidable rather than preventable. The warning existed. The process was followed. The records are complete. At this stage, warnings are fully domesticated. They no longer threaten stability. They actively help preserve it. Once warnings reach this stage, recovery becomes extremely difficult. New alarms sound exactly like old ones. They use the same language, the same formats, the same escalation pathways. From the system's perspective, there is no longer a clear distinction between a minor concern and an existential threat. Everything blends together. This is why catastrophic failures are so often preceded by long periods of documented concern. The warning was present, often repeatedly, sometimes in great detail. But by the time the risk crossed the line from theoretical to real, the system no longer knew how to respond. It had practiced ignoring itself. Even sincere attempts to reintroduce urgency struggle to gain traction. Leadership statements become sharper. Language hardens. New task forces are formed. Additional reviews are commissioned. Activity increases on the surface, but the underlying response remains unchanged. The system becomes busy rather than responsive. Processes multiply. Meetings increase. Reporting accelerates. None of this restores the lost connection between warning and action. The machinery moves, but it does not turn. Frontline staff recognize this immediately. They see that louder warnings still produce the same outcomes. That recognition completes the cycle. People stop expecting intervention. They stop trying to prevent failure and start planning around it. At this point, warnings no longer function as early signals. They function as background narration. Failure does not arrive as a surprise. It arrives as confirmation. When it finally occurs, it is framed as something that had been known for a long time. That framing is accurate, but it is misleading. The system did know. Knowledge simply stopped having authority. Information accumulated, but influence vanished. The mechanisms that once translated warning into correction were already gone. What remained was endurance, improvisation, and hope that the next failure would still fall within tolerable limits. Eventually, one does not. And when investigators later ask why no one acted sooner, the answer will sound implausible but true. They did, for years. The warnings were there, they just no longer worked.